Okay.
Welcome, everybody. We're just going to wait a couple minutes as everybody loads in. I can see everyone joining now, so just bear with us 1 minute. Welcome, everybody. Just as we're waiting for people to load in, I can see people continuing to load in. We'll just wait 1 second. Well, probably 30 seconds. Thanks, Sam, for the comments. Nice to see you here. We'll just wait 1 second because we've still got people joining. Okay, Juliana, do you mind sharing our slide presentation there? There we go. Thanks very much for that. Welcome, everybody. We're going to do some quick homework here, and then I'm going to dive in. We've got a really interesting topic here tonight. As people continue to load in, we will get going, and then maybe just quickly recap some of this in a moment. So today we're talking about the legal expense insurance for strata corporations. I'm your moderator, Sean Ingram. I am the president of CCI, and happy to have you for BC. And then we've got two keynote speakers here. So we can go to the next slide. We have Lisa Burley. She is with ARAG Legal Solutions. She's waving there. Lovely lady. And we've got Tony Esposito. Not as lovely. He's a vice president for national for claims for BFL. And I would say we definitely have two industry experts in that we're going to be talking about this. So what are we talking about today? So as part of most, if not all, strata insurance policy, there's a coverage that is related to legal expenses and legal coverage. And so it's something that is not widely known, nor is it understood in the industry. So here at CCI, we thought, well, it's pretty important. And most people already have coverage like this or something similar. So, council members and strata managers should know how to use it, what it is. And so that's going to be our focus today. And so it's kind of interesting because most of you already have this coverage, you just don't know about it. Or maybe you do know about it, but you don't know how to fully use it. All right. So a little bit of housekeeping for today. Audio and video is disabled. So if you want to ask a question, we're totally open to questions. And you just write it in the Q&A panel. So if you go down below in the Q&A, or the chat, you can ask a question. I'll be looking after that this evening. And so I will try to layer the questions into the presentation if they fit. If they don't fit and we have time, we'll get to them in the end. And we'll make sure that any good question isn't left undone. And so just look out for that. If you've got any questions, you want clarification, please put it in the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer it. If we go to the next slide, we've got poll questions. So we're just going to do a sample poll here. But what a poll is a box that's going to pop up on your screen. And then we would ask users to click on what they want. And then we'll be able to see the results live. And we're going to try one right now. So Juliana, can you launch one? There we go. Okay, looks like we've got about 65% Strata Council members, some property managers, unit owners, trade, and then other. And so we've got a good mix, but our focus today will be on Strata Council members and property managers. So this is a great crowd, and we'll be talking about that. If you're a unit owner, this might be a little technical, but hey. And then if you're a trader professional, hopefully you're from the insurance or legal community, and then you'll understand it. So with no further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Burley, and she's going to start with another poll and then walk us through what is this. Over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Sean. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for inviting me. Really looking forward to providing more clarity about legal expense insurance. So let's start, before we begin, diving into the insured events and some real-life stories. I'd like to start by asking the following questions. So in 2022, we at AREG conducted a study with 1,000 individuals across the country to really understand the prevalence and the types of legal disputes they encounter. Now, while legal disputes were surely prevalent, an interesting find was that legal disputes had a great and significant impact on these individuals that went beyond just the financial. So here's your question. So if you were to make a guess, what would you say was the biggest impact that legal disputes had on them? Would it be financial, time, mental health, or reputation? So Sean, maybe you could share the results of the poll question when you're ready.
Absolutely. I will cut it off as soon as I see it slowly. I think we're good enough. There we go. So we got 45 financial, 21% time, 26% mental health, and 8% reputation. Okay,
thank you. So let's look at the next slide, please. So the mental health was actually number one, with 73% of respondents reporting having experienced significant amounts of mental stress on a personal level while handling a legal dispute. Following closely was the time impact at 70% and the financial impact at 56%. Now, when we think of cost handling of legal disputes, the first thing that often comes to mind is the financial cost. But we understand that there are many more layers to this issue that are not always top of mind. So you'll see here, 73% is a very high percentage, and it's clear that legal disputes are taking a significant toll. So this is where solutions like legal expense insurance come in play. So what is legal expense insurance? Next slide, please. At its core, insurance, legal expense combines the benefit of two things, okay? So legal assistance gives strata councils and condo corporations unlimited access to a legal helpline staffed by lawyers who are ready to help answer questions and provide assistance and information on any legal matter. Legal assistance also provides various legal and/or non-legal assistance services. And combined with legal insurance, going hand in hand, legal insurance covers an assigned lawyer's hourly rate from the first dollar spent, as well as other costs to handle the legal issue. Next slide. All right, so now as you can see in this slide, there's a wide range of legal questions, including condo or strata bylaw, civil and employment law related questions being asked that were handled by helpline lawyers. Now, this chart also shows how the legal helpline will provide general legal assistance for questions or issues that are not covered under the policy, such as family law, wills and estates, and a wide range of other legal issues. So last year alone, our legal helpline handled over 22,800 calls, averaging 2.7 calls per case to ensure customers understood their rights and options. Now, this shows the value of legal helpline and how having access to legal assistance can help provide peace of mind, which brings me to my next point. Legal expense insurance solutions help strata councils and condo corporations feel a little bit less overwhelmed when facing an unforeseen legal event, as the policy allows them to exercise their rights, protect their budget, and saves time and effort. Tony, take it away.
Thank you, Lisa. Before we get into the coverages for legal expense insurance specifically, I wanted to cover a couple of other policies as well and give a very high level overview of what those policies are, and how they all interact with one another. Now, I work in a claims department, so we see a lot of these every day. They definitely happen. And one of the common questions we get is there's a lawsuit that may come in or a threat of a lawsuit, and we'll typically get an email or a phone call asking, hey, can you open up a legal expense claim for me? And while legal expenses may form part of the claim, it's not necessarily a legal expense insurance policy that would respond. So wanted to touch on a few different policies that exist. So the three that would typically respond to a legal matter are the commercial general liability policy. Then we have the directors and officers insurance. And then last but not least, the legal expense. If we go off to the next slide.
And sorry, Tony,
So-
just for clarity for everybody. So those are all pieces of a strata policy in general, right? So they're different,
Correct.
they're different components of it.
Correct, yes. So these are all policies that form a typical strata program, so to speak. They're very general coverages. The liability policy is a policy that stratas are required to have. Now, you might have differences within individual stratas of how much limit you have, but typically they're very similar in nature as far as the extent of coverage goes. Directors and officers insurance, again, is it's not a requirement, but it is an optional coverage in the Act that I highly recommend. I don't know anyone who would want to volunteer to be on council without this insurance policy being in place to protect the board or the council from any disputes that may arise from their decisions. And then the legal expense, again, it's all part of the overall package that most stratas will have, and it fills in the gaps between those two policies, which I'll get into on the next couple slides here. So the general liability, to simplify it, this is your slip and falls. This is your third party is suing you for property damage. What it does is it provides coverage for third party liability. So that means a third party is coming to you claiming that you are negligent and owe them, in most cases, money. That's what they're looking for. They feel that they were wronged by your failure to exercise care or a reasonable, that a reasonably prudent person would have exercised. And they do so through the courts. So the coverage for the general liability would provide a defense for those allegations that are being made against you for those negligent acts. The coverage is not only for defense, it also provides indemnity for settlements awarded in most cases. And but one of the big setbacks is it does not provide coverage to pursue legal rights. So it is something that is more reactionary. So somebody has to sue you, and then you will be defended through this policy. Off to the next slide here on D&O. Now, like I was saying, the D&O policy isn't a required policy, but it is an option to the strata under the Act. And like I said, I don't think I would ever be on a board or a council that does not have directors and officers insurance. I think you'd be really hard pressed to find anyone willing to volunteer.
Especially because they're the ones signing the policy. Yeah,
That's right.
I can't think of a strata corp that doesn't have their council have some sort of D&O.
Yeah, perfect. So what does it do? It protects those council members for actions they take when acting in the interest of the strata. So they're helping, they're volunteering to run this property. Not everyone's going to agree with the decisions made by the board. And unfortunately, there are situations where a unit owner or a group of unit owners may sue the board members. It again provides a defense for claims made against the council and board. It can provide for indemnity for the settlements awarded as well. Similar to the CGL, it does not provide coverage to pursue legal rights. So again, it's more of a protection for the board, and it's reactionary. And one of the commonly excluded items under the D&O policy is for any claim arising from either bodily injury or property damage. Now, I mentioned on the CGL policy, that's typically what we see is slip and falls and property damage. So they exclude it under the D&O because the D&O knows that it's being provided coverage for under the CGL. As I mentioned in the CGL, it is a third party claim. So if it's not third party damages, there would be no coverage there. So there is a possibility for gaps to occur within a strata for different disputes that may arise between the D&O policy and the CGL policy, which is a good segue to our topic for tonight.
Can I ask a question? One great question just popped up in the chat. If I can, you said I can interrupt anytime, right?
Feel free.
So are volunteers, i.e. committee members, also covered under D&O?
Yes, actually, I should be careful when I answer that. In most cases, yes, they are. And the reason I say I should be careful on that, there is a number of products out there for D&O policies. I have seen some that do not include coverage for volunteers or committee members. Typically for a strata, you would also see that the property manager is included as a named insured under a D&O policy as well, which makes complete sense because the property manager is acting on the instructions provided by the board, right? So if they get dragged into a lawsuit based on one of those decisions, they should also have the benefit of the defense. But again, it's important to note the differences between different policies. Definitely, I would suggest you talk to your broker about it, because I've also come across policies that will say, one I came across actually said that the property manager is covered, but not if they're collecting a fee for their services. I personally have never come across a property manager who doesn't collect a fee for their services. It's not a charity, right? There's a fee associated with the job that they do. So that would kind of make that coverage kind of pointless. So it's important to know what policy you have and what the coverages are there. And like I said, always feel free to reach out to your broker and they'll guide you through that as well.
That's great, Tony. I've got one more. This is a popular one. So this is a really good question too. Is there not an assumption that council members are acting in the best interests of the strata and not with ill intent? And if it's okay, I'm going to answer. And if you disagree with my answer, fill it in, Tony. So really it is, you could be acting in the best interest of the Strata Corporation, but one owner doesn't agree. So a great example of that is someone that's made an alteration to their patio or something like that. And then the Strata Council has to make the right decision, which is, hey, you can't, put down carpet on your deck in the tower or whatever it is, and you have to remove it, and they may sue over it. And when they do pursue legal actions, usually there's a wide net cast, which means everybody gets listed, even if they're even close to the situation. And that would include council members. And so that would provide, D&O would provide that coverage for that situation. Anything I missed, Tony?
Yeah. No, perfect. Only thing I would add to that is I purposely separated legal expenses, defense costs, and settlements. And the reason for that is it doesn't mean you necessarily did anything wrong when you get sued. You could have done everything absolutely correct, and the courts might eventually agree with you that you did everything correct, and settlement or the judgment may go in your favor. But it doesn't mean that there's not still a process to get to that point. And very unfortunately, that usually means a big bill that goes along with it in legal costs. So, yeah, you nailed it with your answer, Sean. But just to take that one step further, it doesn't mean that you can't get dragged in and end up paying a lot of money out of pocket.
Even a broken clock's right once a day.
Yeah. So that brings us to legal expense insurance. So like I mentioned, there could be gaps that are created between the CGL and the D&O policy that don't necessarily provide coverage if you only had those two policies in place. That's where legal expense comes in. Legal expense has been around in the strata space. I think it was about 10, 11 years ago when we first introduced it. And yeah, it was when it was built with the intention of filling those gaps and providing strata's coverage with what they're commonly seeing as issues that have arisen. So it covers the legal expenses for the council and the board under specific coverages. What I mean by that is Lisa will get into the specific coverages, what they are and what they mean, but there's actual events that provide coverage. And the reason I point that out specifically is because we also get a lot of questions of, hey, I have a bill for legal expenses. Do you just pick that up, regardless of what it's for? So there does have to be a triggered event that provides coverage for it. It does not provide coverage for the settlements awarded, similar to the CGL policy or the D&O. If somebody slips and falls on a icy sidewalk, they might sue for their damages and be awarded a settlement for that. Legal expense insurance is only for the legal costs that are incurred throughout that process, not for the judgment that may be rewarded. And in some cases, and this is where I think it becomes really unique and valuable, is it provides coverage to pursue your legal rights. So the CGL and the D&O I already touched on are reactionary products. Someone has to sue you first, and then you can go back and defend yourself through those products. So without incurring any costs under you personally. What this does is it actually provides you with the opportunity to pursue somebody. So it kind of gives you an ace up your sleeve in certain situations. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Lisa.
Good segue, Tony. Thank you so much. So you're absolutely right. The legal expense insurance, some components of these insured events will provide the strata an extra defense in pursuing. So basically, typically, what are the core benefits of LEI? They're applicable to legal defense, contract disputes and debt recovery, property protection, bodily injury, and last but not least, strata counsel and owner disputes. Now, these insured events are very common, usually faced by strata and councils and condo corporations across Canada. Some of these insured events are actually designed to defend the corporation's legal rights, and some are designed to also help them pursue their legal rights as a plaintiff. As you all may know, strata counsel is a common legal term in BC, whereas condo corporation is typically a term used within the rest of Canada. BC and Alberta have much more codified strata condo bylaws, legislation, and dispute mechanisms compared to the rest of Canada, and the difference in terminology is reflective of that. So let me share some of the customer stories to just give you a bit of more understanding what these insured events cover. So the first example we have here is legal defense. Next slide, please. And it's about Stephen's story. Stephen is a board member of a strata, and he was presenting significant changes to the strata's bylaws when he got into a heated exchange with an owner during the meeting. Now the arguments and name calling continued after the meeting was adjourned, and some were pushing and shoving. Unfortunately, the next day a police knocked on Stephen's door and advised him he was being charged for an alleged assault, which now the owner, victim, claimed took place later that night in the parking garage. Then so Stephen called the legal helpline, and a lawyer advised him on his rights and how to handle an unexpected and distressing situation. Typically, because it's a legal defense, a criminal defense lawyer right away was assigned and represented Stephen in this whole case. Successful defense claim resulted in him being acquitted of the charge, and he was relieved because he definitely didn't have any criminal record before. So in this case, the strata actually saved himself $8,000 in legal fees. Tony, do you have anything to add on that particular example?
On that example, no. And I am going to provide some examples of where we see these claims and coverages used within a strata. Luckily, this is one section of the policy. We don't see a whole lot being used on the day-to-day in stratas. I'm happy to report that. But if it's all right, I am going to touch on the question from Sam in the chat.
Okay, I was going to bring it up. You got it. That's great.
Please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So
I was going to interrupt. So you got it. That's perfect.
Perfect. Thanks. So the question is, if a legal action has begun just a few weeks before the change of an insurance program happens, does the old policy provide coverage until the case ends, or does it get taken over by new coverage? So again, it's important to differentiate here that we're referring to legal expense insurance, which shouldn't be confused or mixed up with a legal retainer. So with legal expense insurance, the policy that is in place would typically respond and see that claim through until the completion of the claim. As long as it's a covered loss that happened during the policy period. So even if you were to change insurers, cancel your policy entirely, whatever it may be, it would see that claim to completion. Like I said, that is different than a retainer, which once that retainer is ended, coverage would then end as well.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. So let's move on to our next example. This is actually a very well utilized insured event in our policy. It's all about contract disputes. Now, this is about Lauren's story. Now, a Strata Council had a contract dispute regarding a frequency and scope of services a waste management company provided, and they decided to terminate the contract. Naturally, the waste management company did not agree with the contract termination and filed a small claims court action against the council for $45,000. Working with Lauren, the assigned legal counsel put together a robust case to validate the rationale for the contract termination and defended the Strata Council as the case moved through the small claims court process. As a result, the waste management company agreed to settle the matter for $4,500. Lauren and her colleagues in the council were pleased as they saved over $25,000 in legal fees.
All right, this is my chance to jump in on this one for some claims examples. I'm going to preface this with, this is probably my favorite portion of the policy. It's contract disputes come up a lot within Stratas, from snow removal companies to waste removal, to even contracts of insurance. So they're all contracts. There's always a possibility of a dispute arising when you have a contract. And this gives you a real, this is one of the coverages I was referring to when I said an ace up your sleeve in regards to protecting the strata. So what I mean by that, and I'll give you a real life example of, there was a claim that had a claim that was made for property damage that the insurance companies took a different approach to it, basically implying that there may not be coverage. This contract, not implying, they denied the claim. And this coverage was triggered to basically dispute the coverage opinion taken by the insurance company and really hold them to task. Now, the cool thing about this is sometimes you will come up against people who make business decisions that say, well, you know, it's questionable. We're going to decide not to provide coverage. We're going to decide to break the contract and see what happens. In many cases, the legal costs that are involved in pursuing that or fighting that just don't make it worth it, right? You're not going to spend $30,000 of legal costs to fight for a $10,000 what you feel that would be awarded. In comes legal expense insurance. Now they will pay that legal expense cost to get you what was deserved and to act right on the contract. So again, this is something that could have significant repercussions as far as savings go for the strata, and could come in very handy in a lot of different scenarios.
Can I bundle two questions up for you, Tony and Lisa? One is, say you've gone to arbitration and you've won. Does this product cover the legal expense to go get the financial enforcement of that? So sometimes in arbitration, it can be like, yeah, this party has to pay this party. Can you go to court? Will it cover the going to court to get an order for that money? Is that too?
That's a good question.
All right, we stumped them.
Well, from a legal expense insurance perspective, we do not necessarily cover anything before the claim is actually reported, because also a typical question is, can they hire their own lawyer? So similar, right? Now they engage themselves in services with another lawyer that's outside of our panel lawyer. So similar to your PNC, it has to be conducted from day one with us. So we can can control the cost, and we know exactly what we're up against. So from a perspective of arbitration, it happened before even the claim started. That kind of expense I don't think will not be covered by our policy.
Okay. And so I'm just gonna keep going if that's
Mhm.
okay. So
Yeah.
is arbitration part of the coverage at all? If there's you got to go to arbitration to dispute something, or
You
does it
know,
have to be in
very
court?
good question, because because from our perspective, we actually obviously again control the claim or how it goes, because typically the claims journey, it goes through our claims analyst, and we do have lawyers in our panel, in our group. Things like a demand letter, right? Let's say they hired a landscaper, promised the job, they put in $5,000 to the job, landscaper turn around and they've got another bigger job and they never showed up. So they can actually collect that, initial down payment or whatever. And it's typically done by our team, our claims analyst, and sending them a demand letter. So it doesn't necessarily go to court or through another lawyer, because those are like, we try to obviously minimize the cost of the claim.
Okay. I'm going to keep asking questions if that's okay. So one of them is, does a contract dispute and debt recovery included in the legal expenses? Or actually, are we ahead of ourselves here? I think we might be ahead of ourselves. So say owner owns special levies. Could this product be used to take them to task to go to the legal route to collect?
Tony, you want to take that? But I can take that either
Sure.
way.
Sure. So for special levies, unfortunately not, because now we're getting into the specifics of the policy though. So I don't know if we want to go down that path, but
Good point.
so there would be an exclusion for that under specific policies.
Yeah.
But again, I would suggest reviewing the policy to make sure that the one that you have does or does not have that exclusion. But typically, I would say no, there would not be coverage for that, because those are fees that are typically excluded under that coverage.
Okay. Thank you very much for the answer. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to ask one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is maybe more of a Tony one, but if a claim is made under this program, does it affect premiums with renewal?
Yeah. So the good thing is typically no, and it's important to note too that majority of your premiums, when we were talking about stratas, probably as high as 95% of it comes from the property coverage, and the rest of the coverages are much smaller in comparison. But with this coverage specifically, no, opening up a claim does not impact your loss history in that same way as opening up a water damage claim or a fire claim repeatedly.
Okay.
That's correct. So from a perspective of legal expense insurance, because it's legal expense insurance, and typically we underwrite it based on a program basis. Therefore, it's not individually underwritten. So if one strata had incurred a claim, it doesn't affect the renewal for the whole program, because it's rated based on the entire group of programs.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Okay. I think I've answered enough questions. We'll leave a couple of the other ones that roll in for later.
Okay. So we're going to go to another interesting topic, warranty disputes. So one of the key coverage under the LEI policy includes representation when a warranty claim is denied by a warranty provider. ERIG assists with warranty disputes where the insurer has denied reported defects under the 2510 warranty policy. Warranty disputes fall under the contract of services insured event, and that it is guided by the Homeowners Protection Act and regulations, which came into effect on July 1st, 1999. And there are 4 warranty periods. That's 15 months, 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years. All right, no questions on that, so we'll go ahead. Let's talk about property protection. As Tony earlier said, this is an exclusion usually, hey, Tony, from a pursue side. So in this case, property protection under an insured event in the supply line to a condo owner's sink developed a slow leak and covered significant damage before it was discovered. The owner refused to pay for $5,000 deductible incurred by the Strata Council. So Lynn is a council member and he was assigned to take care of this issue. Now, he tried his best to negotiate with the condo owner, but in the end decided to file a claim. A lawyer was assigned, and after additional attempts at negotiation were made to no avail, the lawyer began the formal process of a civil action. Threatened by the possibility of a bigger action, the owner agreed to pay the $5,000 they owed. The council saved $1,200 in legal fees and, of course, helped avoid what could have been a lengthy litigation process. So that's property protection.
If I could just add a little context to this as well. And in the process, I'm going to give a little bit of kudos to Lisa and ARAG's team there. So under this policy, this is where we see the deductible assessments, much like that example of Lynn's story here. Going back not that far in the past, we used to see a lot of times where deductibles would be charged back to a unit owner. The unit owner and or their adjuster would decline the deductible, saying it's not valid, we're not paying it, and basically move on. And it would be very difficult to go after them. Sometimes it wasn't worth it financially to go after them. Other times it may have been, and a decision would have to be made by the strata. In a lot of those scenarios, however, the deductible was basically abandoned. So through this coverage, not only are you saving on the legal fees, you're actually able to make that recovery that would have otherwise been abandoned in the past. And through so many of these throughout the years, it's changed the attitude of the industry, where when these deductible assessments are coming in, everyone now is more educated in that regard. The unit owners and their adjusters are also more educated in that regard, and they understand the exposure that they face. And the whole process has become a lot easier throughout the years as a result. So there's a lot that went into that. It's not entirely just because of ARAG, but again, it's something that has definitely happened for the positive for the industry at large.
Thank you, Tony. So the next insured event is bodily injury, which is another unrelated or uninsured coverage through the property casualty. So in this case, it's about Joanna. Now, she was going to an off-site condo corporation meeting when a flower delivery van rapidly backed out of an alleyway and struck her. Joanna suffered multiple fractures and an extended recovery, which kept her away from her work and condo corporation duties. Now, with the permission of the strata of the condo corporation's policy, she started the process to pursue her legal rights. A personal injury lawyer was appointed, who immediately began negotiations with the florist auto insurer. The assigned lawyer successfully negotiated a settlement of $125,000. Now, typically, if you hire your own lawyer, there's a contingency fee agreement. In her case, Joanna would have paid approximately at least $37,000 of the settlement she received and paid the lawyer. But in this case, with this policy, she kept 100% of the settlement amount, which allowed her to focus on recovery and return to work.
Yeah, can I just say, so for Milady that got hit with the florist van, she looks pretty happy. So,
she recovered already. She had all that injuries done. Good comment, Sean.
I don't know if it was a good comment, but anyway, Tony, you.
The claims process, it was all about the process of the claims, and it was a fair settlement that she got.
Okay.
All right. Last but not the very least, Strata Council and owner disputes, Priyanka's story. A unit owner requested permission from the Strata Council to put up a wall in their dining room to convert their strata into a 3-bedroom unit. The council did not approve the request. The unit owner then decided to commence civil legal action against the council, stating that they did not follow their bylaws and blocked approval of the requested change to her unit. Priyanka was tasked by the council to handle the issue. So she filed a claim and a legal counsel was assigned. Working with Priyanka, the assigned legal counsel was able to prove the council was in the right, and the unit owner's argument that bylaws were not followed was rejected. Priyanka and her counsel saved $50,000 in legal fees. So Sean, there was a question about earlier that you can ask that. This because it will fall under Strata Council and owner disputes. No?
Yeah, I think we've answered all that question, so I can't even remember what it was.
Okay, good.
If I could just expand on this one as well. Again, this is another coverage that we see a lot of in the Strata space, where we see it more often is in regards to water damage claims that the unit owner who was affected may feel like the strata should have and could have done more to prevent it. I think that there's going to be a little bit of a trend upwards on this as a result of the higher deductibles. So with property deductibles increasing, even though they've now leveled out, but the point still stands. With those deductibles increasing, that means more cost is going to be the unit owner's responsibility to repair to their unit. And unfortunately, within BC, there's still a lot of unit owners that do not have insurance. So unfortunately, what typically happens in those situations is they don't just take the responsibility and pay for their own damages themselves. They then look at who can we blame to recover this money from. So an example that we'll see is water came in from there was a storm. Now there's a leak from the roof that damaged this unit. That unit owner would then turn around and say, well, you were responsible for maintaining this roof. You were negligent in the fact that you didn't maintain the roof, and therefore you owe us all this money. This coverage would then come in, and this is one of those gaps that I was referring to earlier in the presentation of the legal expense insurance filling those gaps. So this coverage would then come in saying, okay, fine, we're going to look into it. We're going to cover the legal expenses to defend the strata. You did do everything that was required. This was a storm, it was outside of your control, whatever the defense may be, to help the strata with that lawsuit. So again, it happens a lot. I think we're going to continue seeing it, unfortunately. But again, it's a good coverage to have.
Yeah, I just emphasize that is definitely we're seeing an uptick on this. Okay, we've got 2 questions just rolled in, and I have not pre-screened them, so here we go. I don't know if that's a question, but I think it was just a fear of like, oh wow, this is some exposure as being a council member that they didn't know about, and that's what DNO's for. And then there's a question: would this could this product be used to have an owner comply with things like smoking in a non-smoking building? Can it be used to pursue bylaw compliance? Either of you.
I hope I'm not talking out of line when I say for bylaw compliance in a non-smoking type of a fashion. I don't believe there would be any coverage under the legal expense insurance. If it's a bylaw compliance in the sense that you're causing damage to another unit, like physical damage, then there could be coverage under different sections of it. Sorry, don't mean to sound too vague of an answer, but it would depend on the details of what we're talking about there. But if it's just a smoking issue, unfortunately, no, I don't think it could be used.
Okay, next question is, and this is a good one from Ian. So for property, all owners are insured, right? For property and coverage. Is that the same here where an owner could get coverage through this program, or is it just for the board or the council?
Unfortunately not. It's for the council. Yeah, it's for the Strata Council.
Okay.
And just to clarify also on this one, it's also not for the property manager either. It's only for the council, not the owners.
Yeah, good call. And then another one is, what is the average premium cost? That might be a tough one, but do we have a range for premium?
It's usually rated based on the number of units.
Okay.
That's how we charge. Yeah.
Okay. I can say overall, and maybe Tony, you got to back me up on this, is that the property, specifically earthquake, is the vast majority of the policy costs.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, on most strata policies, you're looking 95% of the premium cost is wrapped up in the property portion. Because those are the ones that are big claims quite often. There's a frequency issue and a huge exposure. The rest of the coverages that we're referring to tonight, and there's more as well out there, including your pollution coverage, your volunteer accident coverage, your terrorism, whatever it may be. Those make up quite the small portion of the overall premiums.
Okay.
And if I may add, our policy is a secondary policy. So typically it cannot be purchased on its own. we have to be attached to a primary policy, CGL, property, and all that.
Okay, great. So our next slide is why legal insurance?
Good question, Sean. Why legal expense insurance? Because it exercises your right. Not only sometimes defending, it also allows you to pursue, protecting your budget. Do you guys know that the average cost of a lawyer these days, $400 an hour? Quite expensive. Yeah.
My mom
Last
was
but
right.
not, yeah, last but not least, saves time and effort. Now, there's a fourth benefit, because as Tony pointed out earlier, it truly really fills the legal risk gaps, right? Because not all of the coverage under your property casualty is covered under it. So we actually fills in the in between the gaps for that legal expense insurance that we can help you with. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to recap,
Mhm.
most council members and strata corporations have this coverage or something similar to this coverage. And I know we are very careful tonight not to talk about specifics because there's different coverage for different policies and everything like that. But most likely, all you council members out there, you have some of this. It would be pretty normal if you did. And so what we're hoping tonight is trying to explain how you can access it and in what situations you would do it. If you're a property manager, guide your clients on how to use it and when to use it. Interesting, it doesn't raise premium, so why wouldn't you use it? And it can fit in a lot of situations when do it. I think, Tony, just to reiterate what you were saying, is the most important thing is to reach out to the broker and say, hey, this is a situation before it gets ugly and you've already spent money on lawyers and everything, so that we can the coverage can see if there's coverage there and see if they want to take it on and then proceed with that from that. Is that a good summary? Anything Tony or Lisa you want to add?
Oh, that's
Absolutely. One piece that Lisa did touch on earlier, but just as a reminder, is it's important to report those claims or even potential claims to your broker as soon as you possibly can, and especially before you incur any costs with a lawyer, engage a lawyer, etc. Because under all of the coverages we spoke about tonight, unless the claim itself is an accepted claim and coverage is being provided, even if it's something that coverage is being provided, they don't go backwards and pay for costs that were incurred prior to that acceptance. So it's important and beneficial to the council to report it earlier, get that approval, and then engage the lawyer through the correct channel so that the coverage is afforded.
Yeah, and in addition, because it's not going to affect their premium, typically reporting it and not going through it, but at least it's been reported, it's already recorded. And then if they change their mind and wants to proceed with the claim, then at least it's already recorded. Yeah.
Okay, we got a couple more questions rolling in. So just before we wrap this up, maybe I can fire them off. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. One is, if the developer does not repair a defect reported under a 5-year envelope, can council use this program for legal?
Good question. So it happens a lot, and it's something that we struggle with warranty providers. So if you're basically getting the runaround, they've accepted the defect, but you're not getting the work done. It's a little bit not more difficult. It doesn't trigger any of the events under the policy. However, if that defect, you feel it's a defect, they have denied coverage under the warranty, then you can open up a claim under that breach of contract. Now, it would get reviewed by the ARAG team to confirm, and a lawyer, of course, to confirm if there's prospects of success, which means, are you chasing something that has a potential of winning, or is it, once it gets reviewed, they're looking at it saying, no, they actually did act in accordance to the contract. So, yeah, once you have that denial, that could be a trigger to open up a contract dispute. Unfortunately, just refusing to repair a defect, that may not.
Okay. One person said, I'm a member of Legal Shield. I do not know what that is. And would that make a difference? I assume that's some kind of legal coverage, and maybe that's a secondary or personal.
I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure. I think Legal Shield is only for general advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, please correct me in the chat if I'm talking about the wrong
Mhm.
product. But if it's only general advice, I guess that would be similar to a part
Yeah.
of this coverage that Lisa's
Correct.
talking about,
Yeah.
but
Correct.
it would not provide for the event coverage.
That's correct. So
Okay.
it's just giving them the advice, the support. Other than that, pursuing an insurance claim will not go forward with it. Yeah.
Okay. The next one is it's a unique one. I'm going to say that. And so this Strata Council's lost D&O insurance coverage. And so my suggestion is that you get your insurance broker and a lawyer together and figure out how to protect yourself, because running without D&O is a risk for sure, just if there might be legal costs associated with it. But I think that's kind of outside this seminar scope. And then the other one is also on warranty, and we just kind of touched on that and how to claim it. And that's all the questions. So we did our job here. And if there's no other questions, nope, doesn't look like it. Oh, one rolled in. Does this program assign the legal services to a predetermined group of legal firms, or once the claims were accepted, can the Strata choose their law firm is really what it boils down to, or their legal rep?
Unfortunately, no, because we will determine what the specificity of the claim in itself. I can guarantee you, though, that our panel law firms have been vetted and authorized to act on Eric's behalf. At the same time, they're specialized, most certainly, only on those types of issues. We would never assign a lawyer that's more like corporate tax to a Strata issue. So it has to go through the Eric system.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Shout out from Mo, just saying thank you very much to, especially to you. And that's a great segue to go to the next slide if we could. And that is, what should you do when you receive legal threats or claims? I think we should skip the poll. The answer is, because we just talked about it, let your broker know. Let your broker know. That is the most important thing. When you have any worries, let them know, because if it's on their radar, they can help you get coverage, and it's harder to get after the fact. So the segue I meant to go to is thank you to all the sponsors. So this is the last event for CCI for our fiscal year. It ends in the summer. And these sponsors made all these possible. We did 15 different presentations this year in the last 12 months, and on a wide range of topics, and we couldn't have done it without the sponsors. So real shout out to them. Appreciate all of them to it. And with that said, if we can go to the next slide. Our next CCI presentation is September 24th on strata governance and enforcing bylaws. We expect that one to be a well-intended one, because enforcing bylaws is always fun. But that's in September, and we're also going to have our AGM around then, because we take the summer off. If anything comes up in the meantime, though, please head over to our website. We're going to try to continue to push out articles and information as legislation changes or different things evolve. And with that, I just want to thank you, Tony and Lisa. It's been wonderful. Really appreciate your insight. Nice to have the experts here and really address something that hasn't been talked about a lot, which is an interesting part of most Strata insurance policies. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have
And
a good
everybody,
evening.
Thank you.
have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Take care.
And thanks for
Bye-bye.
joining us.
Bye.